And it so happens that I, an unsuspecting student of theories and histories, have received insights in a most unanticipated way, not from books or articles, as is the common route, but from the more ancient mode of dreams, or rather, to employ the prophetic phraseology, visions of the night. Note, in actuality, the content of these visions has given me much reason to doubt that they were mere dreams, but I will leave that discussion for another time. And now, it is with great timeliness that I present to you this retelling of these strange visions concerning mankind in the year 2018 and the years soon to follow. For the sake of accuracy, each vision is retold in the present tense, first-person style, just as it was experienced, in a manner of speaking. Note, the many crude illustrations and diagrams that accompany these visions are only meant to provide a rough approximation of the many wondrous vistas and over-the-top beings that I encountered along the way. Is there proof? Yes. The second religiousness, as foretold by German scholar Oswald Spengler, has indeed returned to the stage of world history. And behold, in a vision of the night, I find myself in a gloomy room where I am confronted by 5 stone doors of different shapes. They pulsate as if possessing a life of their own. Moreover, each doorknob glows with a phosphorescent neon green radiance. How exceedingly eldritch, I remark to myself. I marvel at the phosphorescence of the doorknobs, for the powers by which they glow I comprehend not. But alas, there is no time to ponder on this. The floor suddenly turns a deep carmine red, and the walls of the room turn a monochromatic pumpkin orange. Then, without any forewarning, the walls crack in a manner remindful of a cracked windshield on an old car. How inscrutable! What could be the meaning of these phenomena, I say aloud, but I do not expect my words to elicit a response. Listen to my words, human, a supernatural-sounding voice rumbles from behind me, and I shall tell you the meaning of these phenomena. I turn around and behold, it is a giant flying golem penguin. It is immense in stature, measuring over 9 cubits. Moreover, its body is of the most singular composition. Its wings are of copper, its core of hematite stone, its feet of gold, and its belly of polished peridot stone. Now listen, human, says the massive bird golem, its voice raspy and deep, its posture direct and unemotional. The 5 doors symbolize the 5 digits of the human hand. This is the power that mankind has to exercise its will over all the earth until the time of the emergence of the strong AI and the coming technological singularity. Technological singularity, I say with a gasp. Are you referring to that hypothetical moment in the relatively near future where exponential progress and technological advancements gives rise to a superintelligence? It is as you say, answers the monstrosity of a penguin. I continue my inquiry. And are you implying that this superintelligence will be capable of performing a runaway reaction of self-improvement cycles, as asserted by futurists like Ray Kurzweil? Again, it is as you say, answers the avian gargantuan, but this time with a noticeable smugness. My inquiry still continues. And what does the eerie green glow of the doorknobs represent? I ask with an intensified curiosity. Ah, this is the most essential question, responds the colossal bird golem. The green glow represents the strange mystery surrounding mankind's potential as pertains to this age. By the words this age, you mean to say the age before the technological singularity. Precisely, human. You see, the period of history in which you now find yourself is rife with contradictions regarding the meaning of life, society, and the individual. True enough, Mr. Penguin, but isn't every age filled with its own similar troubles and conflicts? For example, don't ancient works of literature, such as the Hebrew Book of Ecclesiastes, say things like the following? What has been is what will be, and what has been done is what will be done, and there is nothing new under the sun. Is there a thing of which it is said, see, this is new? No, it has been already done in the ages before us. There is no remembrance of the former things, nor will there be any remembrance of the latter things, the things yet to be done among those who come after. Upon hearing these words, the penguin at once erupts in agitation. Oh, come on now, the giant avian golem scoffs. Did the time of Solomon have robots with machine guns mounted on them? Or bots that can prepare fast food? Or self-driving cars that will replace millions of human workers in perhaps 15 years? Well, did they? You have a good point there, I rightfully concede. Anyhow, what does the floor of deep carmine and the crackling walls of orange represent? I push these questions quickly because the fowl seems increasingly vexed by my presence. Oh ho ho, I have changed my mind, the bird coos. I have decided not to tell you the full signification of these things, for you have offended me by your previous statements concerning the book of Ecclesiastes. Yes, by no means shall I make known to you the full signification of the vision. The penguin's mouth now seems to open, close, and reopen in a half-laughing motion. In other words, he is displaying his own distinct brand of perturbation. If I have offended you, then I apologize, is the only response that I can muster. Apology not accepted, the penguin snaps as it shifts its eyes upward, but I do have some advice for you before I go. Which is what? I answer reflexively, quickly trying to gain any more information I can. From now on, you will do well to pay closer attention to the purported new truths of your age, particularly those which attempt to submerge the studies of philosophy and ethics with the biological sciences. Why? Because there is an emerging trend in academia to subordinate all human thought to the framework of evolutionary biology, to categorize all constructs as being either adaptations or exaptations within the process of natural selection. And what's so bad about that? I egg the bird on. To be frank, such a trend does a disservice to the cause of pure thought. That's a curious proposition, but don't you think you're exaggerating the danger? Science is always about testing ideas, and besides, we can see that... But you don't understand, the golem bird interrupts. Don't you realize that your civilization is undergoing the second religiousness? The second what? I stop in mid-sentence, filled with perplexity. Yes, the second religiousness. That stage in human civilization best explained by German scholar Oswald Spengler, who describes how every great culture begins with a mighty theme of the spirit that emerges in the countryside and closes with the finale of materialism in the world cities. The second religiousness appears in all civilizations as soon as they have fully formed themselves as such and are beginning to pass slowly and imperceptibly into the non-historical state in which time periods cease to mean anything. The material of the second religiousness embraces the whole world of primitive religion in the guise of a popular syncretism of materialistic beliefs and primitive religion. Source, The Decline of the West by Oswald Spengler. Mr. Penguin, are you saying that the natural course of all high cultures is to depart from their founding religious precepts and to adopt a materialistic worldview? Such is the case. And furthermore, are you saying that the emerging civilization will then seek to form a syncretism between materialism and the earliest elements of primitive religion? Quite so. And still furthermore, are you saying that thought leaders like Jordan B. Peterson are effectively promoting a syncretism between science and religion in a manner precisely in line with what one would expect during a second religiousness period of history? It is as you have said, and with that the golem penguin stretches its wings, turns around, and takes off flying, gradually vanishing while still in mid-flight. Hey, please don't go before clarifying more on this last point. I am now jumping up and down and fiercely waving my hands in the direction of the monster, making my appeal for it to stay and clarify. But alas, not several moments later, he has totally vanished. Chapter 1. I meet a religious zealot who appeals to the scientific thinking of evolutionary biologist Brett Weinstein to explain the Darwinian benefits of being a faith-filled believer. As soon as the giant flying golem penguin has entirely vanished, I find myself at a loss. The monster departed with too many questions left unanswered. And why did he quote Oswald Spengler's 1918 book, Decline of the West, leaving me with observation that our civilization has reached a stage in history called the second religiousness? As I reflect on this, I note that all the elements of my previous vision had disappeared. The 5 eldritch doors, the carmine red floors, the orange walls, poof, all gone without a trace. I now find myself in an undifferentiated dark room. What do I do now? I begin meditating upon my surroundings, recalling the words of the famous psychologist Carl Gustav Jung on the subject of darkness. That is to say, the darkness of the human soul. Quote, people will do anything, no matter how absurd, in order to avoid facing their own souls. One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. Could this quote be applicable to me? I mean, right now? No sooner do I ask myself this question than I hear the unmistakable sound of parrots squawking. Then it happens. A small incandescent light bulb in the center of the room gradually increases its luminosity, so as to render visible a squawking bird. The bird begins to speak. Squawk, squawk. Whatever you are meditating upon, it is of little import, for your thoughts are merely the thoughts of a mortal, and mortals do not endure for all generations. Squawk, squawk. As the resolution of the scene clears, I can now make out the bird's features. It is a grotesquely formed, tropical-looking species, but not exactly what I would call a parrot. In fact, it's not even close to a parrot. But all said, it qualifies, at least in my mind, as a tropical species of bird. In any event, it is not the sort of creature that I would imagine belittling a member of the human species. Nevertheless, there it stands before me, with its green and yellow blended coloration, with its unseemly three-toed black feet. Moreover, its actual size is unworldly large, appearing to be just under 4 feet tall. And most of all, the avian bears a hideous and dangerous-looking beak, which kind of resembles a maw. But its unsightliness notwithstanding, I am still in no mood to entertain the bird's insult, which I find insupportable. Tell me, bird creature, I challenge, are you an immortal being that you should disparage me on account of my mortality? Well, are you? Well, I don't have immortality just yet, the bird says proudly, but of this much I am certain, my master has immortality. Your master? I am shocked at this word choice. Who is your master, bird? And may I speak with him in person to ascertain the facts concerning his immortality? Sacrilegious and transgressing human, of course you cannot speak with my master, the great cerulean one. Not even I can consult with him directly. But I do believe in the stories concerning him, that he possesses immortality and will give it to me also, provided that I follow the 11 precepts of the faithful. And then, filled with a sudden zeal, the tropical-looking bird announces in a loud voice, I must now disclose to you the representation of the great master, the cerulean one, in the act of creating the world. Is this some sort of proselytization attempt? If so, I decline. I am required to do this, for the 5th precept of the 11 precepts clearly states that true believers must share the sacred representation of the world's creation to non-believers at such times as seem propitious. In this way, non-believers are without excuse. The creature excitedly produces from under his left wing a folded rectangle of thick artist canvas. He frantically unfolds the rectangle to reveal an image of the world's creation, or so he zealously calls it. Behold the cerulean one's handiwork, shouts the bird, and contemplate the majesty thereof. And on the painted canvas is a curious scene, the distinct parts of which are discernible, but the whole of which is indiscernible. There is a sandy desert plain and a fulgent yellow sun. Moreover, the sun has 12 tongues of fire emanating from its corona. In the background, there are 3 multicolored and humongous flowers, as well as 2 dragons flying in the air above. But the foreground is what takes center stage. On an elevated hillock is standing a cerulean blue penguin with emerald green eyes. In its flippers it holds an unadorned metal vessel. I am at once curious about the full meaning of the scene, and in particular about the contents of the metal vessel. So, impelled by curiosity, I inquire further. So what exactly am I looking at? I reply curtly to the parrot bird in such a way as to hide my true and intense curiosity. Upon hearing my question, the bird's countenance is raised up. He then begins to explain the mystery of the beginning. The etiological tale begins thusly. Before there were civilized beings, the cerulean one of all efficacy came down into the middle of the boundless desert of the fulgent sun. Now, in those days, the whole world was only a desert territory with very little water. So the cerulean one humbled himself to descend into such a dry place. And he said, I will now do this thing so that a miracle might be said to have been wrought upon the earth. And having declared this, He opened the silver vessel of wonders, from which came forth 5 particular things, 3 enormous seeds and 2 dragons, and the 3 seeds burrowed deep within the ground. Then they emerged forth and blossomed as the 3 flowers of succulence. As for the 2 dragons, they were called unbelief and self-righteousness. Now from the 3 flowers of succulence came forth enough sweetness and water to sustain large societies and even civilizations. But the peoples of the earth did not recognize that the cerulean one had done all this, because the dragons named unbelief and self-righteousness had also been working their deceptions throughout the whole world. The dragon called unbelief is the main cause of atheism, and the dragon called self-righteousness is the main cause of humanism. The tropical bird finished his retelling with a look of triumph, and then, joltingly, he hops in my direction in a manner that gives me a start. He continues speaking, but now with his positive emotions flowing, the ebullient bird spews his words with a prime confidence. So you see, now you can believe and extol the name of the cerulean one too, realizing that it was he who has done all of this. After displaying a satisfied grin, the bird now stares intently on my face, waiting for an affirmative reply, a reply which is not coming. I'm sorry, but I can't take that story to be the truth. Then that means, the bird's voice grows dark, that the dragons had you, don't they? I don't believe in that either, I respond frankly. The bird is now vexed in his countenance, but seems to regroup himself for his next point of persuasion. What if I told you that by accepting this belief you would gain a powerful form of metaphorical truth? You know, the kind of truth formulated by evolutionary biologist Brett Weinstein. He is human like you, so you must have considered this possibility, right? Metaphorical truth? Brett Weinstein? These references are unexpected and leave my mouth agog. I am now very confounded, for the tropical bird has just resorted to an argument that used religion as a mode of behavior whose merits are grounded in its high adaptive value, in evolutionary terms. Wait a minute, Mr. Parrot-like thing. Did you just suggest that I consider the metaphorical truth of Brett Weinstein argument as a valid reason for becoming a member of your community of the faithful? Squawk, squawk. Yes, metaphorical truth. Squawk. The bird stamps his feet. And if you join our religious community now, then we can assure that you will also be putting your offspring in a more advantageous position to receive the revelation of metaphorical truth as well. So how about it? Madness, I think to myself. I can't believe that this alien adept is asserting that if I just accept his religious beliefs, then I will thereby indefinitely increase my genome's evolutionary fitness. That is to say, the ability to produce more viable offspring in the evolutionary struggle for survival. Evolutionary biologist Brett Weinstein defines a metaphorical truth as an assertion which, although literally false, still puts the believer in a more advantageous situation, Darwinian-wise, than what would otherwise be the case without the assertion. So functionally, there is no reason to see religiosity as a mere delusion. In fact, natural selection should explain the reason why so many people possess high degrees of religiosity. I look straight at the bird, and it winks at me. Okay, I've had it. I feel the need to verbally confront the creature forthrightly, holding stalwartly to my own integrity. Okay, Mr. Parrotman, I say in a manner akin to confrontation, isn't the religious zealotry you have previously displayed incompatible with your reference to Brett Weinstein and his concept of metaphorical truth? Oh, really? Well then, how am I any different than those humans in your world that speak somewhat as I do? At least in your case, I offer you the chance to receive the evolutionary benefits of metaphoric truth in the form of resources for you and your offspring. At this point, I feel the need to interject with increased skepticism. What do you mean by resources for me and my offspring? What resources could something like you or your community give me with regards to metaphorical truth? Excellent question, human. Well, for starters, if you join the ranks of the faithful, then one day you and your offspring will partake of the flavorful and succulent fruits and vegetables of eternity. These nourishments will be directly manifest from the cerulean one's silver vessel of wonders. Okay, great, I answer. but about the metaphorical truth that pertains to gains in the material world. You know, the advantage that equates to evolutionary advantage. It's important to note here that at this point I have ceased to speak sensibly about the use of the word truth, and have given myself over entirely to my own curiosity as to what a creature like this bird might further say. The tropical bird begins to chortle, but refrains himself and then responds, "Well, here's how it works. When you believe in the faith, you will try harder in life to reach your dangling carrot of eternity. In doing so, you will have more reproductive success, or at least that's supposed to be the idea." The same rules apply for humans in various religions, but for us it's even better because we are right about our religion, at least as far as we can tell. Upon saying this, the parrot-like bird proceeds to close its eyes and meditate upon the worthiness of its actions. I interpret this as such because after taking a deep and prolonged... I interpret this as such. I am now filled with both shock and a sense of the absurd. I respond accordingly. What? What? So the benefit of which you speak is merely psychological benefit and nothing more? I am amused at the bird's unaccountable self-satisfaction throughout all of my misgivings. Well, so what? At least this belief system is beneficial during the duration of one's life. And besides, who knows? What if this whole religious thing is true after all? It could only benefit us. If we are wrong, then we lose nothing when we die. But if we are right, then we gain eternity. It makes perfect sense, right? The bird breathed in another joyful, contemplative breath of air, furthering its sense of self-contentment. Wait a minute, I move with a jolt of revelation. So this is just Pascal's wager for you? I respond unambiguously. Furthermore, I am in no mood to discuss this popular argument of the 17th century philosopher. You could say that if you wanted to. In any case, I also need to emphasize the important benefit of gaining the support of a community like ours. In fact, it's perhaps the heart of metaphorical truth. The tropical bird looks past me, seeing something that it recognizes, something that brings a smile to its face. And speaking of the community, here are 4 of your new brethren right now. I turn around to see them. I am not shocked at what I see, but I now feel acutely sick to my stomach. It's not that I'm judging these creatures, because I'm not. I just find it tragic that such unique souls are being held in the bondage of such a contrived dogma. And what's worse, their ringleader is a pragmatic opportunist who only seeks to build his business out of young birds who are hungry for real truth, not metaphorical truth. Chapter 2, the intriguing message of the clear quartz penguin. But no sooner do I feel this sickness in my stomach than a couple of moments later a mighty wind comes forth from the north. Then, in a twinkle, all the tropical-looking birds disappear on the spot. As the wind subsides, I hear their squawking voices singing a squawky song, all in one defiant unison. Humans choose to be a religious believer. Squawk. Because scientific studies show that religious people have more children. Squawk. And that means that Darwinian evolution favors them. Squawk. Yes. Choose to be a believer. Squawk, squawk. Yes. I can't believe what I'm hearing, and just as my mind is incredulous, so too my soul is vexed to hear words so contrary to the integrity of any religious-oriented belief system. Several moments of silence pass, for which I am grateful. But then I hear the voices of the birds again, this time proclaiming proclaiming the following message in one caustically mocking accord. He who wishes to gain his Darwinism must lose his Darwinism. Listen, and we shall explain to you this mystery. You see, he who loses his Darwinian faith is more likely to be religious. Consequently, such an individual will have more offspring, at least according to scientific studies, and will thereby gain the fruits of Darwinian fruitfulness via his more numerous viable offspring. Yes, we are impelled to repeat that he who wishes to gain his Darwinism must lose his Darwinism. Upon hearing this, I am again moved to voice my confusion, but this time I am filled with such perturbation that I answer with a voice that approximates a shout. Who hath wrought all this madness? My words reverberate in a forceful echo, both unexpected and thought-provoking. Who hath wrought all this madness? Who hath wrought all this madness? Who hath wrought all this madness? Then, as if my voice has found a mighty listener from the invisible realm, the whole room is gobbled up, seemingly by the mysterious forces of time and space. I now find myself alone in a celestial zone of stars, moons, and wondrous nebulae. There is no floor below me and no ceiling above. Here, in this spaced-out feeling, I vaguely catch glimpses of the multitudinous but too distant possibilities of existence. But as soon as I focus my mind on the fact that there is no ground upon which to stand, then I see the ground draw near to my feet. In a flash I am provided with a place to stand, and I am soon standing straight up in a picturesque and snowy landscape at twilight. It is very cold, but where exactly am I? I inspect the scenery of this new vista, which resembles an Antarctic landscape in the heart of summer. Like I said, it is twilight and very cold from my perspective, but it's probably warm for the denizens of this realm, or so I imagine. As I walk across the snowy landscape, I come across a patchwork of small, compact crystal mounds. Diminutive hillocks of crystal, I think to myself, with more than a little wonder. As I walk past each crystal hillock, I take note of the vast discrepancies of size existing between one hillock and another. Some of them are even as small as 4 feet high and with a diameter of around 9 feet. It is next to one of these small hillocks that I decide to stop, so that I might better evaluate the landscape and skyscape before me. I sit down on the crystal mound and look up enthusiastically, seeking to take in the vast immensities of the approaching night sky. My eyes directed skyward, I focus on the first stars emerging, anticipating how the fully formed constellations might appear. I am not left uninterrupted for long. I have company. No, I am on top of company. The mound begins to quake just as I am spotting some fine patches of yellow stars newly emerging in the night scene. I jump up and off of the hillock and back away a good 15 feet. It's a creature rising out of the crystal, hatching out of the crystal. No, it is the crystal itself. It begins to walk in my direction, albeit slowly and in a waddling manner. I am the clear quartz penguin, says the unnerving being. An ambulatory crystal penguin, and one made up of clear quartz crystal, no less. Impossible, I think to myself. But if that's impossible, then what is this creature? An animal? A mineral? Clearly not a vegetable. Whatever the case may be, this much is sure. The quartz monster is emitting a pulsating energy that is unsettling to my nervous system. As for the creature's appearance, it looks somewhat demented, but I can't be sure that this reflects his true state. If experience has taught me anything, it's that reading the emotional states of non-human inorganic creatures is dicey at best, completely untenable at worst. The creature starts speaking. Human, you must make haste to forget all the words spoken to you by Passero Rasmussen. This is my commandment unto you. Amazing, it even talks with a voice worthy of an inorganic being, too. Indeed, the crystal penguin's voice sounds like a child's voice, but one that has been augmented by synthesizers to sound louder and more alien in nature. And by alien, I mean straight-up cinematic extraterrestrial alien. But there's no time to further ponder upon this point. My attention now turns to the penguin's words. He says that I am to forget the words of Passero Rasmussen, but who is that? Oh, great clear quartz penguin, I say ingratiatingly. Who is Passero Rasmussen? Rasmussen is a member of the cult Brethren of the Cerulean One. You mean to say that, yes, he is the yellowish-green bird with whom you were conversing. How do you know him? And what is your assessment of his religious beliefs and pragmatism? That's irrelevant, human. Remember that I have commanded you to forget all of Passero Rasmussen's words, and you shall do this forgetting promptly. Now take heed, for I am the clear quartz penguin, who is mighty and gives you commandments by which you shall live. All of a sudden my mood changes, or to be more precise, something snaps within the fiber of my being. Now wait a minute, Crystal Bird, I explode with a newfound indignation. I don't care how mighty you think you are. I will not tolerate this sort of speech. It's too religious sounding. The penguin gives me an intense glare, expecting me to back down, but I don't give in to such intimidation. I resolve to match his glare with one of my own. For several intense seconds, there exists an impasse of two beings, one human, the other mineral animal, or at least something non-human. And then it happens. The tension breaks down when the crystal quartz penguin nods in approbation. Very well done, human. Your correct response to my posing shows that you are now ready to engage in the real task at hand. The real task at hand, I repeat in a state of puzzlement. Yes, you see, what you experienced before was just a test. You shall now undergo the gauntlet for clarification. The what? The gauntlet for clarification is a trial in the form of a discursive confrontation with many unforeseen entities. And if you succeed at correctly assessing the veracity of their claims, then you will obtain what is known as the sublime relic of authentic clarification. That sounds absurd, I opine. And what if I flatly reject to undergoing this trial? Impossible, the quartz penguin scoffs. In the first place, you are already here, and secondly, you manifested this phenomena into your own life and on your own accord. The penguin nods to me, his gleaming eyes fixed, as if to say, yup, that's the real truth, and I'm not lying. But I did no such thing, I protest. Oh, really? You mean to tell me that you don't remember meditating upon this quote by Carl Gustav Jung? And with that, the penguin quotes the very words I was meditating upon a short while earlier. People will do anything, no matter how absurd, in order to avoid facing their own souls. One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. Chapter 3, the orange trunk penguin who probably should have never been a sports fan. As soon as he has finished quoting Carl Gustav Jung's quote, As soon as he has finished requoting Carl Gustav Jung, the crystal quartz penguin predictably vanishes. All right, I've had it, I half shout, throwing my hands up. This has to be a dream, for where else can creatures display the ability to simply vanish on demand? But wait, what if? It then dawns on me that this might be more than just a dream. It could be, no, it has to be the gauntlet for clarification. So now that I am already in it, what do I do? I remember the clear quartz penguin's words. And if you succeed at correctly assessing the veracity of their claims, then you will obtain what is known as the sublime relic of authentic clarification.